Let's talk about one of the most incredible energy stories of the last 30 years. It's happening in Ireland. We're talking about a complete reinvention, moving from a grid that was literally powered by the boggy earth under its feet to one that's now powered by the wild Atlantic winds at its doorstep. So how did they do it? Let's break it down. And to really see just how dramatic this shift has been, you just have to look at the before and after. Back in the early 90s, the whole grid ran on fossil fuels. You had peat and coal making up over a third of their homegrown energy. And electricity from wind? A big fat zero. Nothing. Now, you fast forward to today, and the use of fossil fuels for electricity has hit a record low, and wind power, well, it now meets about a third of the entire country's demand. So let's just rewind to that starting point for a second. In the early 1990s, Ireland's energy was mostly homegrown, yeah, but it was also super carbon intensive. Sure, natural gas was king, but look at that huge slice of the pie for peat and coal. You have to understand, for generations, cutting turf from the Midlands bogs, that wasn't just about making electricity. It was woven into the fabric of the country's energy security and was a huge source of local jobs. Okay, now look at how much that picture has changed. By 2024, renewables are a massive part of the total energy supply, completely redrawing Ireland's energy map. Now, this did not happen by accident. So the big question is, how did this island on the edge of Europe manage to pull off such a radical transformation? Well, the answer, really, in one word, is wind. Ireland started to look at what was arguably its biggest challenge, that relentless, stormy weather rolling in off the Atlantic, and they saw it as their greatest asset. This was the start of a very deliberate, decades-long plan to become a world leader in wind power. I mean, think about it. At the turn of the millennium, wind power was basically a rounding error in the energy system. Just 145 megawatts of capacity for the whole island. It was a nice idea, but it was a long, long way from being a reality. But then, look at this jump. In just over 2 decades, that number has exploded. We're talking more than 30 times the capacity, getting close to 5,000 megawatts. This wasn't just gradual growth. This was a full-blown energy revolution. And this graph here just tells the story perfectly. You can see it right there, that steady, determined year-after-year build-out. This wasn't one single project. It was a massive national effort to build a completely new energy future, one turbine at a time, making wind the new backbone of the entire Irish grid. But, and this is a huge but, relying on wind at this kind of scale creates a brand new, massive problem. It's really the classic renewable energy riddle. What on earth do you do when the wind just decides not to blow? Or, for that matter, when it blows way too much? Right, the technical word for this is intermittency. Unlike a traditional power plant you can just switch on or off, wind turbines only make power when the weather cooperates, not necessarily when people need it. And if you're a grid operator and your entire job is to perfectly balance supply and demand every single second of the day, well, this is a nightmare. Now, Ireland knew it couldn't solve this problem by itself, so the solution was to look to its neighbors. It started building these enormous undersea power cables. They're called interconnectors. You can think of them as giant extension cords to Great Britain. These energy highways let Ireland sell off its extra wind power on super stormy days and, just as importantly, buy power from its neighbors when things go calm. These interconnectors were an absolute game changer. But as Ireland started pushing for even more renewables, a deeper, way more complicated technical problem started to surface. And this one threatened the stability of the entire system. And this brings us to a concept that is absolutely crucial: grid inertia. So picture those gigantic, heavy, spinning turbines inside an old-school coal or gas plant. All that physical momentum acts like a giant shock absorber for the grid, keeping the electricity supply stable. But as you start swapping those out for wind turbines, which don't have that heavy rotating mass, the grid loses its natural cushion. It becomes fragile. So this became the multi-billion-dollar question for Ireland's engineers. How do you replace that stabilizing force without the fossil fuels? What can possibly provide that split-second safety net you need to stop the whole system from going dark? And the answer is pure 21st century tech: batteries. And we're not talking about the AAs in your TV remote. We're talking massive, warehouse-sized battery energy storage systems. These things can react in milliseconds to any wobble on the grid, basically providing a kind of digital inertia to replace the old, heavy mechanical kind. And just like we saw with the wind boom, the rollout of this battery tech has been incredibly fast. I mean, from basically zero just a few years back, Ireland had over 750 megawatts of battery storage online by the end of 2024. That's the high-tech safety net built in record time. And this quote right here points to the other critical piece of the puzzle, making it all pay. In 2025, a huge market reform finally let these batteries play in the big leagues, buying and selling power on the open market. This wasn't just a technical fix, it was a commercial one. It made the massive investment in batteries a smart, financially sustainable business. Okay, so with these three key pillars locked in, you've got massive wind power, you've got the interconnectors to your neighbors, and you've got this new battery safety net. Ireland is now aiming for something even more audacious. By the end of this decade, the country has a legally binding target to generate an incredible 80% of all its electricity from renewables. 80%. I mean, that would put Ireland at the absolute forefront of the global energy transition. No question. Now, getting there is going to take another absolutely massive effort. It means they have to nearly double all the onshore wind they've already built. But the real game changer here is building a huge offshore wind industry, completely from scratch. They're aiming for 5 gigawatts of capacity out there in the Irish Sea. And the work doesn't stop there. The final pieces of this giant puzzle involve building even more of those undersea cables, but this time going directly to mainland Europe. It means looking at brand new technologies like green hydrogen, and, critically, it means figuring out how to handle the skyrocketing electricity demand from all the massive data centers that now call Ireland home. When you step back and look at the whole thing, Ireland's journey from peat to power, it's more than just a local success story. It's a real-world, high-stakes experiment in completely rewiring a nation to run on clean energy. It really could be a blueprint for how other countries all over the world get this done.